In this edition of Southern Newsweek, millions of dollars is about to be spent on Dunedin's Courthouse, and it's money that isn't likely to go north. Concerned citizens make their protest in a unique manner over a controversial Dunedin bus service. And the former Otago man who brought us the term bird flu returns for a flying visit. Kia ora, I'm Holly Buchanan. Work on Dunedin's historic courthouse is almost set to begin. The government's committing $20 million to the earthquake strengthening and restoration project, and much of that money will be staying in the south.
Checking out an expensive asset, Justice Minister Amy Adams has been examining the historic Dunedin courthouse in announcing the appointment of a lead contractor. The strengthening and restoration job is being handled by Southern company Amalgamated Builders.
It is not a simple project, taking on a building of this complexity, this degree of historical importance, but we're very pleased today to announce that we have now secured the funding as part of Budget 2016.
Built at the turn of last century, the Category 1 historic building was closed in 2011. That prompted the legal community in Dunedin to rally public support for its retention. In January this year, Cabinet decided to save the courthouse, committing funds to its restoration.
I have a view that when you are the owner of a building of this sort of heritage importance, that comes with obligations and responsibilities, and even though it is a very large project, it was always going to be a very large project. This is the scope I always anticipated it would be. I was obviously a little cagey with my numbers while we were negotiating and just said north of 15 million, which was always the case. But I was always committed to seeing this work done.
It's intended that all court services will return to the building in early 2018. Construction set to be completed in just over a year's time. Much of the expense will be in modernising the facility and installing the latest technology being used by the Justice Ministry and Department of Corrections.
We're taking the opportunity to do everything we need to bring it up to a court of modern standard and functioning, so it includes not only upgrading it to between 60 and 70% of new building standard, which is higher than we have to go legally, but what we want to do as part of it. It involves redoing a lot of the facade and the point work on the stone while we're undertaking the works makes good sense. There are significant security upgrades for the building so that we're again operating to our modern expectations. There is a lot of technology upgrades planned within the building, the use of CCTV and audio-visual links, and making sure the court functions in the way that we want a modern court to function, so a much more flexible, user-friendly registry and public-facing areas, and a better design for all of those who use the building.
The courthouse was built in 1902 at a cost of £20,000, and all the classic furnishings will be retained. Amalgamated Builders says about 50 subcontracting companies will be involved, and almost all will be local. On average, 38 workers will be on site every day for the duration of the contract. Rosie Mannins, The South Today.
New Zealand police officers recently paused and formally acknowledged their colleagues who've died on duty. Services have been held throughout the south, including at some of the smaller regional stations. And for one precinct, it was an inaugural ceremony.
Tears were shed remembering Balclutha Police employee Pauline Burrows, who lost a fight with cancer 2 years ago. Her 32-year contribution to the station was marked as part of a wider service for Police Remembrance Day. It's about remembering all 32 officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty and the 40 who have died as a result of their jobs.
Yeah, like I say, they were just trying to do the right thing for the community and stop it from trouble from escalating, and they paid the ultimate price, unfortunately.
Balclutha police officers were joined by Burrows' relatives in a gathering at the Balclutha Community Police Centre for a discreet ceremony this morning.
It was all pretty sudden for us, and her of course, it was quite upsetting. It is upsetting for us, and we still haven't forgotten, so we like to keep that memory alive.
This is the first Police Remembrance Day service held in Balclutha. The event is recognised in Australia, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, Samoa and the Solomon Islands.
Yes, there's one, quite a large one being held in First Church in Dunedin, and it seems to be growing around the sub-area stations.
September 29 is known as the feast day of the Archangel Michael, patron saint of police. Senior Sergeant Dickey says it is a reminder for staff not to be complacent and to be aware of the potentially fatal risks that frontline officers take. Samuel White, The South Today.
Members of a Dunedin-based group supporting public bus users are highlighting problems with a new route. They say the Waverley service is painstakingly slow during off-peak times. The bus stops mid-route for more than half an hour, and they've been making their point in a unique way.
Ready, set, go. Members of the Dunedin Bus Users Support Group were kicking off their very own amazing race this morning on foot. They were making a point about the slovenly off-peak Waverley service running to Balnow's via the city centre. The bus sits idle at the Murano Street terminus for about 40 minutes in the middle of a loop on the route.
By looking up the timetable from this point here, from Chalice Street in Waverley to town, from which there has always been a direct bus for many, many years, many decades, I was very surprised to discover that Google actually recommended not catching the bus from here. It said either walk somewhere else or walk to the city. And that's where I got the idea, the inspiration to see if we can actually literally outrun the bus on foot.
Several bus route changes came into effect about 6 weeks ago. The Otago Regional Council, which manages public transport, says they include simplified routes and less fare zones. Changes were designed to make the network easier to understand and use, but not everyone's happy.
If you have a service that operates in a loop, you should never interrupt it. On the other hand, if you have a service that just goes to the end of a road and does a U-turn and comes back the other way, well, it's fine to have a half-hour break then. So we actually suggest that this half-hour break get rescheduled to be at the Balnow's end of the service.
He says that'd solve a few issues at once, since the off-peak Balnow's service has been halved.
If they did schedule the bus to sit at the Balnow's end, they would, lo and behold, have enough time for that bus to actually pop down to the Octagon and back up to Balnow's. So it would actually make everybody happy, wouldn't require any more buses, wouldn't require any more wages for bus drivers who are currently paid to sit still in Waverley when they could be doing something useful at Balnow's.
The bus and pedestrians left the Chalice Street and Larnac Road stop at the same time, around 10:40 a.m. Walkers reached the number 7 Octagon stop a good 10 minutes before the bus did, 1 hour later. GoBus operates the route and the ORC says it's asked the company to cost an alternative. It could mean a solution is implemented within the next few weeks without disrupting the timetable. There are no guarantees, but the number 19's idle days might soon be over. Rosie Mannins, The South Today.
Fishing season has officially kicked off around the country. With Southland home to the most fishers per capita in the country, it's a mad rush to get everything ready in time. And regulatory bodies are asking for anglers everywhere to make sure they're prepared.
Fishing is a pastime many Southlanders enjoy. Tomorrow is the first chance of the season for enthusiasts to dip their rods for trout and salmon, and it seems everyone from newcomers to experienced fishers are keen to catch some of the fun.
This year's fishing season should be a good one. We've had a settled spring. Settled weather makes for great conditions for trout.
Despite the conditions being good for fish growth, authorities say people still need to keep their wits about them when it comes to changing weather while fishing.
I think it's just a matter of understanding where you're fishing, what the conditions are. Keep an eye on the weather. Weather's got a big part of it.
Another aspect of the hobby that could cause some trouble is licensing. Under the Conservation Act, anglers must have a licence to go fishing this season. Stuart says Fish and Game rangers will be patrolling fishing areas and checking licences.
Fish and Game has several classes of licences that are available now, from a day licence through to a short break, right up through to a full season and family licence. And there's a lot of value in these licences, so it's best to come into the Fish and Game office, see what licence is best for you.
This year is the first time in 5 years that the start of the fishing season lands on a weekend within the school holidays. McRae says this makes it perfect for a wide range of people to get involved.
Yeah, the emphasis is on family, isn't it? You know, so what we encourage here anyway is a family activity. Everyone can do it. It's not restricted to any limited liability things or regards to you take your whole family, and that's what we're excited about.
He says anglers need to be aware of their gear and make sure everything's working before heading out to the water. Ruby Spink, The South Today.
Former Otago professor Robert Webster is one of the people credited with tracking the H5N1 virus from waterfowl through pigs to humans. He's also one of those responsible for the term bird flu being in the world's vocabulary, and he's returning to university for a public lecture.
A proud Otago graduate, but a humble world leader of influenza research. Professor Robert Webster's back in the university centre named after him, to give a talk to budding microbiologists. He's been flown back to Aotearoa as a guest of the Webster Centre at Otago, and says lecturing in the facility isn't something he ever thought would happen.
Oh, it's a fantastic honour, something that I could never have believed as a young person going through the university here and beginning microbiology with Molly Marples.
He began researching microbiology in the 1950s after beginning his studies in chemistry. In 1997, Professor Webster was one of the researchers making the links between birds and influenza in humans.
Well, bird flu is very interesting because it showed really for the first time that the theories that we were putting forward, that the influenza viruses all come from the wild birds of the world, was correct.
Before his idea of flu coming from waterfowl was proved correct, he says people scorned his theory, although no one called him a quack to his face.
For about 20 years, people thought, well, this is one of those academic nuts who said, well, that the wild duck is the real source of influenza in the world. And the attitude was, well, yes, the ducks have influenza, but they don't spread it to humans, they don't spread it to chickens, so why should we worry?
His research wasn't legitimised until the bird flu pandemic of the late 1990s.
Then children started dying in Hong Kong. More children started dying. And then it was tracked to the chickens and then back to the ducks. And then the whole world started to listen that the real source of influenza was the aquatic birds.
His colleagues at St Jude's Children's Research Hospital in Memphis describe him as failing at retirement. To help prove them correct, Professor Webster's giving a talk on his research tomorrow evening at the University of Otago. Daryl Baser, The South Today.
Coming up on Southern Newsweek, a blind Dunedin woman creates a podcast to educate others and share her love of Braille. And we take a look at a Polynesian art form that's encouraging visitors to an Otago museum to create and display. Welcome back. This week we marked National Blind Week, and for one Dunedin woman it's the perfect time to launch her Braille education show. The first episode of Julie Wood's innovative podcast was aired on Otago Access Radio, and she's hoping more people will discover and share her love of the tactile reading system.
Affectionately known as That Blind Woman, Julie Wood's love affair with Braille has led to a new and exciting opportunity in broadcasting. The Braille Biscuit Show is a 26-episode podcast series recorded at Otago Access Radio and supported by the Blind Foundation.
So I fell in love with Braille, Louis Braille himself, and also the Braille community and what Braille does to your life. So it was really a love affair that I wanted to put on the radio.
Braille is based on 6 dots, and Wood says it's been translated beautifully into the digital world. But she believes less people are learning it because of the use of speech technology.
So the idea of the show is to remind everybody that it is a literacy tool that is still important, and also it can be a load of fun, which is why we've incorporated the Braille Biscuits into the show.
A very hungry hand puppet will make an appearance on each show, helping Woods deliver her message.
And the Braille Biscuit monster, yes, he has come to help me. He's come to learn all about the Braille Biscuit alphabet, but he really likes those Braille Biscuits, so he's been enjoying them a little bit too much.
The radio show is also podcast, as well as being available on YouTube. And the Otago Access Radio station manager says the changing media landscape has meant it's connecting with more people online.
We're just really aware that we're getting a huge amount of listeners to podcasts of our radio shows, so we broadcast on FM and AM, but programs have a whole extra life as podcasts, and also people are really plugged in with social media.
The show is aimed at all ages, and That Blind Woman wants people to discover that you don't just have to read with your eyes, but you can also read with your fingers. Dee Karen, The South Today.
A special church service is reminding people of the importance of animals. A few dozen pet owners had their furry loved ones blessed inside St Paul's Cathedral in central Dunedin, and similar ceremonies were held around the country.
Not your typical Sunday service. Dogs, cats and even a rabbit were among the congregation at St Paul's Cathedral in central Dunedin yesterday. It was the annual blessing of the animals in honour of St Francis of Assisi, their patron saint. The event's been held locally for about 12 years, giving pet owners the chance to acknowledge the importance of their furry loved ones.
It gives you a sense of belonging. Having a pet gives you something that another human being, I guess, can't give you. And I think it's just the positive, feeling you get, even having a pet.
In previous years, this service has hosted miniature ponies, goats and lambs. This year's offering was slightly less diverse, but no less significant.
It's to demonstrate how important pets are for people in the community. They're really, really important parts of the family. They enrich the lives of such a lot of people.
The Otago SPCA has long been involved in facilitating local animal blessing services, which are held throughout the country. The Very Reverend Trevor James did the honours for the 30-odd people and pets present at St Paul's. In previous years, the blessing has attracted bigger crowds, but SPA staff say it's not the only way locals pay homage to their non-human friends.
Yeah, good turnout. There was more last year, but I think we're battling a beautiful day. I think there's a lot of people that would have maybe gone and done taken their dogs for a walk, maybe.
By all accounts, the service was a success, with all pets well behaved while among the pews. Rosie Mannins, The South Today.
The traditional Polynesian textile known as tapa cloth is the inspiration for a community project at Otago Museum. Visitors are being encouraged to visit the Pacific Cultures Gallery and create their own personal design. Finished wall hangings are on display, but there's still time to produce a few more before the school holidays are over.
For the second year running, the Otago Museum is celebrating Pacific culture with its Creative Pacifica offerings program. By the end of the school holidays, there will be 6 of these tapa-inspired fabric wall hangings in the atrium, 100% created by the community.
They're on display now, so everyone can be part of their tapa. So we've got one for each day, and then people can come back and see them.
Visitors are drawing images themselves, cutting out foam and sticking it onto wooden blocks. These are then inked and pressed onto fabric.
And what's really great is we've got some people who are coming back each day because they want to make a new one or they've thought of a new idea. So it's really growing, so we're really pleased with that.
Many of the Pacific items aren't able to be placed in the sunlight. So a video showing the museum's hidden collection and also women creating tapa is playing on the atrium wall. A case of tapa beaters is also on display. Sandy Phillips and her children are regular visitors to the museum, and their Cook Island heritage makes this activity even more special.
I think it's great that we're going to have something that's going to be on display here as well, that represents us as a family.
8-year-old Kaylee Phillips says the process was difficult at the start, but she found one aspect to be easy.
Mostly designing our plan that we wanted.
And what did she think of the finished product?
I really like them.
Once this community tapa is complete, it will hang alongside the others, and there's just room for one more before the school holidays are over. Dee Karen, The South Today.
After the break on Southern Newsweek, a display of Lego building blocks attracts thousands of spectators and raises funds for a children's hospital. And culture determines the direction of the very beautiful Cherry Blossom Festival. About $10,000 is going to the children's ward of Dunedin Hospital thanks to a charity fundraiser. Thousands of people, young and old, flocked to Dunedin's Edgar Centre for the toy-themed event, and a replica landmark was among creations on display.
Well-managed frivolity. Dunedin hosted its inaugural Lego Users Group Show and Tell at the Edgar Centre over the weekend. Thousands of people attended to see what can be achieved with a construction toy which was invented in Denmark in 1932. Lego has grown into a worldwide phenomenon with its own movie, and groups of enthusiasts that make art from child's play.
This is a first for Dunedin, first for our group in Dunedin, and certainly the biggest Lego display that's ever been in this region.
LUG, or the Lego Users Group, is an organisation of people who, as the name suggests, quite enjoy making all sorts of constructed creations, some out of a box, and some made to look like famous landmarks. The event was a fundraiser for the Dunedin Children's Hospital. It was coordinated by the next generation of Rotarians, known as NRG Dunedin. Speaking halfway through the day yesterday, Evans said the number of people attending totally exceeded expectations.
We've well exceeded that figure yesterday. We had 5,400 people through for Saturday, and by the looks of the show today we're going to exceed that number for Sunday, which is great for Dunedin and great for us because it means we can give lots of money away to charity.
NRG Dunedin members say many months of work went into planning the event, just like the time taken to erect amazing sculptures.
Oh, so it's been the brainchild of LUG South for a wee while, and NRG came on board about 6 to 8 months ago to help them with the logistical side of it.
NRG stands for New Rotary Generation, the youth arm of the Rotarian organisation. Clark says they raised around $10,000 for the children's ward at Dunedin Public Hospital. Daryl Baser, The South Today.
And finally, staff and students of the Languages and Culture Department at the University of Otago are celebrating the arrival of spring. It's that time of year when the cherry blossom is in full bloom, and for Japanese culture it signals a time of renewal.
"200 people joined in the Hanami Cherry Blossom Party under the clock tower at the University of Otago. Signalling the beginning of spring and bringing together many cultures, the celebration focuses on new life starting.
It's a season for hope as well. So like when we had that great earthquake and tsunami 5 years ago, it was actually March, and of course everybody was devastated and very sad. But after that, cherry blossoms came out.
The event was organised by the Department of Languages and Culture and the Dunedin Otaru Sister City Society.
We are having a joint party together, and of course our students, our staff members, and everybody is supporting us.
As well as traditional instruments playing and sushi being served, people were also wearing authentic Japanese clothing.
Well, some of them are taiko players. They're wearing happy coats. Yes, so happy coats and yukata jinbei and a lot of Japanese costumes here.
Stuart says the Japanese and Kiwi culture blend together so well at this time of the year. Dee Karen, The South Today.
And that's all for this edition of Southern News Week. You can see more of Southern News by following us on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter, or via our website, channel39.co.nz. I'm Holly Buchanan. Thanks for watching.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.